So, in this video, we are going to talk about a game I'm sure many of you are interested in, which is Star Wars Zero Company, which is basically Star Wars XCOM. That's more or less what it is. That's the best way to describe it. I had the opportunity to play a preview build, which actually happened to be much longer than I expected it to be. So I've seen quite a lot, and I can tell you quite a lot about the game. However, I'm limited to 15 minutes in this video, so let's just skip all the extra fluff and get straight to the point. But before we jump straight to game mechanics, let's talk a bit about everything else, basically. I think the biggest thing that I noticed right away when I started playing was that Star Wars Zero Company is more story-driven than XCOM, but it is very much still a tactical game at its core. The combat is very much the focus, just like it was in XCOM 1 and 2. But there's definitely more story here, and one thing that's very interesting about Star Wars Zero Company is that any character in the game, other than your main character that represents you, can actually permanently die over the course of the game. This is actually an optional setting that you can disable when you start a new campaign, but the recommended setting is to have it enabled. And since we're already on the topic of characters, the way it works in this game is that you have two types of characters, basically. There are pre-made characters that are a part of the story, and they also have their own fleshed-out stories, all kinds of side missions, side stories, and things like that. And you have characters you can make yourself that can join your squad and your team. The characters you can make yourself work just the way they do in XCOM 1 and 2, which is to say you can customize a lot of things about them, and then add them to your squad later on. You can have a whole pool of characters that then get potentially pulled into your potential recruit pool. I am not going to spoil anything about the story here, so I leave that for you to discover once the game is actually released. But it is pretty interesting. There are some choices you can make as it plays out, and there are quite a few cutscenes. And one thing that I actually found to be really neat and interesting is the fact that you can literally walk around your base from third-person view, which doesn't really do anything for tactical combat gameplay, but it definitely increases the immersion. I really wish you could do this in XCOM 1 or 2. Just walk around your base. And that's exactly what you can do here. You walk around your base, you interact with various people there. I really enjoyed that part. But you can also just open the map, click on the room you want to go into, and go directly there, without having to walk over yourself, if you don't want to do that. There are 8 different specializations, or classes basically, each one with different passive and active abilities. There's Assault, Scout, Sharpshooter, Soldier, Medic, Scoundrel, Heavy, and Gunslinger. And there are 4 primary weapons that you can use. And each primary weapon is actually quite different. They all have their advantages and disadvantages that you need to consider in tactical situations. So, as far as actual combat gameplay goes, because that's what I wanted to talk about the most, there are a few really important mechanics that separate this game from XCOM or many other tactical games. So let's start from something fairly obvious like Overwatch. There is Overwatch in this game, however, it works very differently compared to, for example, XCOM. When you Overwatch, you have to overwatch a specific area in a cone. Not only that, you yourself can decide how far you want this Overwatch cone to go. And the further out you want to overwatch, the lower your chance to hit is going to be. So it's up to you. Do you want to maximize your chance to hit, but overwatch a much smaller area and much closer to you? Or do you want to overwatch much further out, but decrease your chance to hit? And also, now that I said you have to overwatch a specific area, you might think, okay, but that makes Overwatch much weaker. And that's where you would be wrong. Overwatch is an extremely powerful mechanic in this game, and one of the reasons for that is because, 1, you can take as many Overwatch actions as you had when you set up Overwatch. So when you set up Overwatch with all 3 actions, because every soldier, every unit, will have 3 action points per turn. So you will have as many Overwatch shots as you had action points when you used it. But more importantly, if you Overwatch on top of an enemy unit, as in, if your Overwatch cone is set up on top of the enemy unit's position, any action that enemy will take will trigger the Overwatch. They do not have to move, they just need to take any action whatsoever. So that makes Overwatch really, really strong. Obviously, if your Overwatch is not on top of an enemy unit, they have to actively move into it. But since you also have direct control over what your chance to hit is going to be with Overwatch, it makes for a very powerful mechanic, and it's a very important mechanic to use well. A lot of your success will depend on how well you're using Overwatch. With that said, there are some other very important mechanics that you will have to use well in order to maximize your chance of success. And one of them is assist. Assist is a very interesting mechanic that's very powerful and very important to use well. And it gives you a ton of tactical flexibility. So every turn, you will have this icon next to one of your units. And this indicates that they can call for backup. What's especially interesting is that call for backup is a free action. You do not need to use any action points to use it. And when you call for backup, you can select any other unit that's in range of the unit that's calling for backup, and that means the unit you selected will assist with your shot. So the next time you take a shot with the unit that called for backup, your assisting unit will also take a shot at the same target. And there are many other things that are feeding into this system. There are passive abilities that improve assist shots, there are active abilities that affect assist shots, there are weapons that affect it, there are bonuses that you can get for various specializations that affect it. So, for example, you can have an assist shot that's a guaranteed hit. You can also have an assist shot that will be a guaranteed crit as long as the primary shot was a crit. And there is also an active skill that can make the next shot against a target enemy unit a guaranteed crit. So you can have a combo where, for example, you mark a target enemy unit so that the next shot against him will be a guaranteed crit, and then you use an assist that will make the assisted shot a guaranteed crit as long as the primary shot was a crit, and you take that first primary shot against the enemy unit that you have a guaranteed crit against. So you can get 2 crits for the price of 1 that way. That's just one example that I'm giving you. There are many other ways to use this mechanic. And using this mechanic well, and using it combined with various other passives and actives, is one of the keys to success in this game, by far. And also, as you might have guessed, the assisted shot is also an entirely free action. So, for example, you can move your unit that's assisting into a good position. So, for example, you can flank the enemy unit with your assisting unit, tell them to assist you, they will take a shot from the flank that costs them nothing, and then you can back out into cover. That's just one very simple example of how we can take advantage of this system. There are many different ways to do so. This will easily be one of the most important mechanics in the game, especially on high difficulty levels. And by the way, in case it wasn't clear, not only is a free action, you can activate this mechanic even if the assisting unit has no action points left. The damage you deal can also be increased with good relationship. And this is another mechanic that exists within the game. As you bring various units into tactical missions, you can increase the relationships between them, which gives them various bonuses that you can choose from. You have 3 different options when your bond level increases. And there are some pretty damn interesting options to choose from. Having said that, your relation level can also decrease. So it's not guaranteed to stay at a certain level when you already increased it. It can also fall. So speaking of important combat mechanics, the next mechanic that's going to be crucial for your success in tactical missions is advantage. Advantage is a special resource, basically, that's shared between all your units. You gain +1 every time you damage an enemy unit, and there are various other ways to gain it. For example, the Scout specialization has a special skill that can give you a bunch of advantage points, and then there are certain other ways to get it. It depends on the class that you're using. But as you probably guessed, you can use various ways to hit several enemies at once and gain a bunch of advantage points from that. Explosives, am I right? That does make explosives even better in this game, because you can use them as a resource generator. But I digress. Anyhow, the advantage resource is used for certain high-impact skills, and you can often use them even if you expended all of your actions on that specific unit. One good example of that is Trick, one of the characters you can play with. He has a special ability that requires 10 advantage, that is basically literally a rocket launcher. And you can technically use all 3 of your action points to move as far as you can, and then still use the rocket launcher if you have enough advantage to do so. That's just one simple example. Obviously, there's a lot more to tactical combat than these 3 mechanics, and I could talk about it a lot if I wasn't limited to 15 minutes, but these 3 mechanics, meaning assist, overwatch, and advantage, will be the key to your success in tactical missions. Now, the other important thing is that you might be wondering how health and dying works in this game. Any of the units on your squad can be downed when they lose all of their health. This is not a chance, this is a guarantee, so there's no RNG in this. When you lose all of your health, you get downed, and then you need to be rallied by another unit on your squad. When you get downed, you suffer an injury, and you can have up to 2 injuries and not be permanently killed. When you get a 3rd injury, your unit will die permanently, as long as permadeath is enabled, that is. You can disable it when you start a new campaign, as I mentioned at the start. Now, the injuries do not go away on their own when you finish the mission. You need to recover at the relevant facility at your base, and this does cost you some money as well. So tactical missions aside, the game also has operations, which are kind of like covert operations in XCOM 2. It's basically something you can do for a benefit. It doesn't involve going into a mission, it just happens. Sometimes you have to assign a specific unit to do it. There's also a little bit of RNG involved sometimes in what the outcome might be. And you need to use the intel resource to do it, which you have a limited amount of. You do, of course, get various rewards out of it. Some operations will be mandatory, but a lot of them are optional, and you will often not be able to do all of them. You'll have to choose which one to do and which one to skip. Another thing you'll run into once in a while is a crisis, and what it means is basically that the enemy will get a certain permanent bonus, and you will have a choice of which one you want to prevent from going through. And these bonuses are permanent. So it can be a pretty important choice, which can affect the tactical missions in various ways. Now, as far as your base goes, you do get to upgrade it as you progress through the campaign, and there are actually a lot of different upgrade options. Not only that, you have 3 different tabs for upgrades: facilities, crew, and weapons. So it's actually a very tough choice what to pursue, whether to unlock and then upgrade various base facilities or actually make your weapons more powerful, because that's what weapon upgrades do. They literally make a certain weapon type more powerful. And initially, you can only do 1 upgrade at a time. Eventually, you unlock more slots, up to 3, but you still have to make some really tough choices. There is a black market where you can buy various weapon mods and utility items for your soldiers, but as you might have guessed, you do have a limited amount of credits, and the facility upgrades are obviously not free either. There are also zone bonuses, which are tied to operations, and you can get various bonuses and resources as you get more zone influence. Now, I will say there's a lot more I really want to talk about, but as I said at the start, I'm limited to only 15 minutes or less, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I will say I will definitely play this game quite a lot once I'm able to, so you can definitely look forward to that. I do hope you found this video useful and interesting, so thanks for watching all the way to the end, I appreciate it. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.
Let me guess. Gone.